What is up, everybody? My name is Pierce, and I figured I'd make a little short breakdown video on the PFL Challenger Series. Week 4 going down this Friday. Only 4 fights going down, so it's not too much to talk about. I mean, there's a couple matchups I don't even want to bother with betting-wise, but I figured I'd share my thoughts since I decided to spend my time taping this shit. But we'll start with the first fight. We got Charlie Decca versus Jose Aguayo, and you're going to see online, Charlie Decca, he's a bit of a head case. He has 3 illegal knees in his past 3 fights. And you will see here, he actually is 1-1-1 from all those fights where he had the illegal knees. We have the Shimon Smotritsky fight. He got out grappled by Shimon, who's the superior grappler. And then in the second round, I guess like he tried to sprawl on Shimon and then he decided to throw out the illegal knee. Made no sense because the dude was clearly on the ground. And he got a disqualification. And then we see in this Devin Dixon fight, it was a draw. But in the second round, Charlie Decca hit him with an illegal knee again. Got the draw. Surprisingly, Devin Dixon, his cardio just collapsed down the stretch. Don't know if that's because of the knee, but Devin Dixon slowed down tremendously, and that's why Charlie Decca was able to get 2 rounds off of him. And then we see in the Bobby Taylor fight, same thing. He kneed Bobby Taylor. Bobby Taylor was sitting on his ass against the cage. He was clearly down, and this dude just throws a flying knee right at his face. You can see like Jorge Masvidal, because he used to fight for his promotion. Him and his buddy were screaming at him not to throw the knee, and Charlie Decca proceeds to throw the knee. And I believe he actually got kicked out of Gamebred Fighting Championship. He's too much of a liability for them, so they won't let him compete with them. And then I heard he actually also got kicked out of American Top Team for the stunts that he has pulled in the past 3 fights. And I mean, that just kind of sums up what level of opposition we are working at here. Charlie Decca, I saw a video on him on Instagram. He was hitting mitts on the side of the freeway with his brother or some shit like that. That just shows the level we're operating at here with Charlie Decca. What does he bring? He is, I guess you could say he's a dog, because his striking is very sloppy. He's there to be hit. He's not a striker. He's trying to rush into the clinch and get you on the ground, trying to get some jiu-jitsu off on you. In regards to getting into the ground, his wrestling's not there. He tries to football tackle opponents, and I'm not really impressed at all by Charlie Decca's game, but I will say he has that like good cardio. He has good pace, but it's a lot of it is if his opponent has poor cardio, then maybe he can take over with the grappling down the stretch. But even when he's on top, I mean, he's good at controlling guys, I guess. He can't get reversed, and ground and pound, I don't see much ground and pound from him. He's more so like just trying to lay and pray and waste minutes. And I guess we can say he uses the illegal knee when he's trying to take the back door. Because in the Shimon Smotritsky fight, he was getting his ass beat and decided to pull out the illegal knee. Probably because he knew what was going to happen. But Charlie Decca, not the most class act, I will say. But we got his opponent. His opponent, I'm not really that interested in because it's Jose Aguayo. He's 31 years old. He's fighting out of Diaz Army. So, you know, he's got that Stockton toughness. And, I mean, you can really see it in his style. He has good, I wouldn't even say good boxing. He just has good toughness. He's there to be hit on the feet like every Diaz brother. And, I mean, I guess you could say his cardio, it's okay. But he's really just kind of a punching bag for a long amount of time until he's able to kind of put the pace on you. So I guess you could say both these dudes have very similar tendencies in where they take over fights due to their cardio, or they're just fighting low opposition, which is going to be the theme for a lot of these guys fighting tonight. They're not fighting the highest competition. But Jose Aguayo, we see he beat Gary Conkle by armbar. Not a bad win. Gary Conkle is a decent regional guy, but no ground game for himself. And I will say, Aguayo, he does have like that Diaz. He has a good guard. He's aggressive guard. I've seen him go for triangles and arm bars. So it's like if Charlie Decca does get on top, which I think there's a good chance because Jose Aguayo's biggest hole is probably his takedown defense. Gets taken down by everybody. I don't know if it's more so him willing to go to guard and play that jiu-jitsu game. I feel like a lot that might be some of it too. He's not afraid to go to the ground. So if someone like puts any like resistance on his hips, he's just more than likely going to get taken down. But this fight's at a pick'em odds. It's minus 115 each, I believe. And it's like, I don't know if I want anything to do with this because, I mean, both these guys are head cases to begin with. I mean, we got Aguayo. He's definitely the better striker. And we have, I mean, Aguayo might be the better grappler, but it's like Charlie Decca. What's the chances he's going to get disqualified with a knee? Pretty high considering he's did it his past 3 fights. So, I mean, off principle, do we go Jose Aguayo wins by disqualification? I think that's the prediction we got to make. We got Charlie Decca going for another illegal knee. And now we'll start with the next fight. We got this is probably one of the more technical fights of the night. We got Tony Caruso versus Anthony Romero. And I'll start with Tony Caruso. He's actually coming in off of a 2-year layoff, but I've noticed on his Instagram that he has been cross-training at, I believe, Killcliff FC and Phuket Top Team. He's from Australia, so he's from that part of the world. So he's been spending some time at Phuket Top Team, good Muay Thai gym. And Killcliff FC, obviously, we know a lot of UFC guys down there with Henry Hooft. So not a bad gym, but he's only been there for like, I think, a couple weeks for this camp, maybe like 2 weeks. But what does Tony Caruso bring in? So he has like a Muay Thai base, you can tell from his style. And he does a lot of plodding forward. And I'm going to be honest, I feel like his reaction time to shots is kind of slow because he gets hit a large amount on the feet because he's just walking forward. He's trying to throw power hooks in the pocket, heavy shots, and he just gets countered and he just doesn't react well to the shots. I mean, we saw in his loss against Peter Buist on Road to One Championship. Yeah, it was one championship. He had a decent first round, but then like this Buist dude was just able to put the pace on him. And then I'm surprised Caruso made it to a decision because he took a lot of damage that fight, and I did not like what I was seeing on the feet from him. He does not. He's decent on the front foot. Like I said, he'll plod forward, throw power shots. He's got a decent inside leg kicks, but I mean, on the feet, it's not much to be desired, which explains why you'll see in a lot of his fights, Tony Caruso is trying to take you down. And I will say his wrestling, he has like good timing on his entries. It's just once he gets in on your hips, the ability for him to cut the angle and finish the takedowns is just not there. I don't rate him as much of a wrestler. I mean, you see a lot of these guys from Australia, they're not the most powerful folk style wrestlers. So it's like Tony Caruso, I mean, yeah, he can consistently go for takedowns when he doesn't have the striking advantage in fights. It's just a matter of whether he can get it to the ground. Because I will say, I saw in some of his one championship fights, he just gets beat up in the clinch, from knees to the clinch and elbows. But I will say, in his last fight against Edward Folliang, you'll see that he won back in 2020, which is about 2 years, 4 months ago. He was kind of the inferior striker of the two, but this guy he fought was from the Philippines, I think, and he had absolutely zero resemblance of a ground game, so he was able to exploit it, which explains why he got a win. But we see he actually took a boxing fight last year. I wasn't able to find tape on that. I didn't know about this. See that he lost by unanimous decision, but I mean, I'm not surprised. His striking's very much we'll say mid average, but he is, how old is he? He is 32, so it's like he was 30 years old in that one championship fight. So it's like I don't know what improvements we're gonna see from Tony Caruso, but it's like if he can't get the fights to the ground, he's probably not gonna win fights at a higher level, such as Anthony Romero, who's also a good fighter. We'll get to him in a second. But Tony Caruso, when he's on top, I mean, he doesn't really show much of a BJJ game. It's not like he's a submission artist or anything. He kind of will just want to lay on top of you. And then from the ground and pound aspect of things, I don't see much ground and pound from him. I mean, occasionally he'll posture up, mix some shots in, but it's like he's kind of struggles to hold dudes down to begin with. So I just don't think he's that high level of a fighter. But we'll go to Anthony Romero. He's 11-1, and he's from a Niagara Top Team up in Canada. Anthony Romero's, he's a very solid kid. I mean, I think he's a kid. How old is he? He's 25. Yeah, this kid's got 12 fights at 25 years old. He's very talented. I mean, you can see a lot of the skills in his game, but the one cause for concern I have with Romero is that he kind of fights to the level of his competition. You see him in a lot of close decisions, and it's like he struggles with putting a seal on a round and really separating himself. I mean, I think all the talent's there. I mean, he has good striking. He's really good at pulling in and out of the pocket. Good 1-2. I like his calf kicks a lot. That's probably one of his best aspects on his feet is his outside calf kicks. We saw actually he fought Mike Breeden on the Contender Series back in 2020. I mean, that was a unanimous decision, 30-27. But I'm surprised he honestly didn't get signed because it was a good performance. I mean, yeah, Mike Breeden was kind of touching him up at moments, but we really saw the calf kicking game from Anthony Romero. He was literally, Mike Breeden couldn't walk at the end of the fight. I'm sure he had a bad leg injury, but we also see in the fight after that, he fought Zach Jusola. It shows a split decision. I mean, for those of you that watched the PFL Challenger Series a couple weeks ago, you guys saw Zach Jusola get a win against a fraudulent guy from I don't even know where he was from, Octagon. But just what I'm trying to get at is Zach Jusola is not a bad win. He's a very regional vet. And I honestly feel like in this matchup, there's not much to overthink. I mean, yes, we'll see here that he also lost by split decision. I mean, a lot of his fights are decisions. So it's like, do you think Romero is going to be able to separate from Caruso? You think he's going to be able to clearly win the fight? The reason I say this is because Romero is minus 300 in this matchup. And I do think Romero has him beat everywhere. It's just a matter of whether Anthony Romero can put a stamp on the rounds. But I will say, his last fight, he got his first finish in a while against Kenneth Glenn. Those of y'all, go check it out. Maybe look up his name on Twitter. You'll see it. It was a flying knee knockout. Probably one of the most vicious flying knees I've ever seen in the regional scene. And Kenneth Glenn was out for a bit. They had to put the neck brace on him. A little bit of a scary moment, but I mean, nice to see Anthony Romero get a finish. And coming into this fight against Tony Caruso, I feel like Romero's got him beat everywhere. He's got the better cardio. He got the better chin. And as long as Romero can stay off his back and defend takedowns, I mean, hell, I think Romero can get takedowns on his own. I mean, we see him. He's got good timing on his double leg. Sometimes he'll wrap around to the back and drag you down to the mat. But, I mean, I like his grappling. When we see him get taken down, he does a good job scrambling up. He doesn't really settle too much on the ground off his back. So I feel like he's a superior fighter all around. And we're going to go Anthony Romero by unanimous decision. And that's probably the most confident bet on the whole card. Sorry, that'll probably be the one I talk the most about because we have the most tape on both of those guys. And now we got Paulo Henrique versus Manoel Sousa. So we'll start with Manoel Sousa, Manu Mitu. He is 9-0, coming off of 2 straight wins in CFFC. And, I mean, you can just tell from the tape, this dude's a powerhouse. He's probably on the supplements. He's got a good doctor down in Brazil, I believe. And he's just really able to just throw power hooks and just fuck guys up with his insane power that he has. And, I mean, you look at his last fight against Mauro Shalat and Trevor Olesen. I mean, these guys aren't the most talented people. It's like he's kind of a can crusher at the same time. And you see he's got the Brazilian regional scene. I don't know how to rate those guys because it's like you see these records, but it's like when you watch the tape, these guys, like this dude he fought, did not look like a 17-4 fighter. But I will say in that fight, he got taken down a lot in the Bisbo fight. And that's kind of a concern I have with Sousa is that his takedown defense is really poor. For someone as strong as he is, he's able to bail himself out of positions by just exploding up. Like say he gets taken down, he'll just explode up in reverse position. I will say on top, if he's able to reverse you, he goes for that Kimura, and that's probably one of his go-to submissions. But overall, his ground game's like nothing crazy to write home about. I mean, he's strong, he's heavy on top, but I don't see him as like a high-level BJJ player. And the fact that he gets taken down in almost not every fight, but he gets taken down in a lot of fights, and it's a very concern I have for Sousa, but there's not really much to say because I don't know what to take from him because he's kind of like a front runner. He hasn't been to the 3rd round at all in his career, and he's fighting low-level opposition. I'm just going to put it as it is. And that'll bring us to his opponent, Paulo Henrique, and you'll probably hear this talked about all week. Paulo Henrique is actually mute and deaf, so he can't speak and he can't hear. And that's pretty fascinating, but it's interesting to see because I feel like if he wins, does he get the contract by default due to his disabilities? I'm not saying that he's gonna, but if the fans are the ones voting, are people not going to feel sorry for him and they're going to want to pick him more? But that doesn't matter. He's got to win the fight. And he's got a tough task ahead of him because we see the odds. He's plus 250. I believe Sousa is minus 350. And the reason why Henrique is probably plus 250 is when you watch his fights, I mean, he's very long. He's definitely going to have a size and reach advantage. I'm curious to see the weigh-ins here. Henrique, I think he's like 6 foot tall, I believe. I don't know what his reach is. Yeah, he's a 6 foot lightweight. He's probably got like a 77, 78 inch reach. The issue I have with him is he has that tall man defense. He just leaves his chin out in the air. And like Sousa, yes, he could catch him with one of those power hooks in the pocket. And Henrique does not fight well off his back foot. But I will say, when he does use his range, he has a good jab. His front kicks aren't too bad. But I will say he doesn't use the jab enough to my liking. So I don't know if I can trust him to fight a smart game plan. But we see in a lot of Henrique's fights, I was able to see his last 2 fights on, it says SFT. That was the PFL Challenger Series qualifiers. So they had a one-night tournament. And then Henrique fought twice in one night. And the first fight was a 2-round decision. He lost the first round because his opponent, Santos, was able to push him up against the cage. And I will say that's a little bit of concern in the tape I've watched from Henrique. He gets pushed up against the cage a lot. He's not, since he's 6 foot tall for lightweight, he's not the most physical dude. He's very skinny in a sense. He's kind of got like that Jalen Turner build. And I didn't like how he got pushed up against the cage. And I was able to see another fight. It was like way back in the day. I forget who it was against, but he's kind of a fish off his back, I will say. But if he does end up on top, like I'll see him go for some, when he does get taken down, he'll shrimp out and get on that single leg to get up. And if he does end up on top of opponents, I mean, we saw in his last fight against Conrado and then the fight against Santos, when he ended up in top position, he has good ground and pound. He has heavy shots. I mean, in the Conrado fight, he hit him with I think it was a hip toss, and then he started throwing ground and pound literally right away, and the dude was unconscious. So that was nice to see. Good win for him. And then in the Santos fight in the second round, he really put the pace on the dude. Santos got tired for going for takedowns, and Henrique was able to turn him into top position and land some nice ground and pound. Almost got the finish towards the end of the round, but won the unanimous decision. So it's a close fight here. I mean, Henrique is going to have the size. I will say the grappling, I have no idea who's going to be the better grappler. I mean, you got Sousa. He's a more physical dude. Maybe he'll get him down just purely off physicality and the fact Henrique kind of flops around all over the place because he's such a long individual. No homo. But Henrique, I mean, he's plus 250. So, I mean, maybe because he's deaf and mute, I have a little fondness towards him. But we'll go Henrique just because he's big. And I don't think Sousa's good. I think he's on steroids and he hasn't been past the second round. So it's like his cardio could be shit. And Henrique puts the pace on him. So we're going to go Henrique. No confidence here. Can't hate an under bet here. I feel like the under might be a great play here considering Sousa doesn't go to the third round. So keep an eye on that. And now we got the main event. Elvin Espinoza versus Damir Ferhatbegovic. So we'll start with Elvin Espinoza. He is 7-0. He's been on the PFL twice, I believe, his last 2 fights. Yeah, we see he was on the PFL last season, and in 2021 he had like the little showcase fights they do at the end of the year. And I will say Espinoza, he's definitely a grappler first, but the whole aspect of him getting it to the ground with his wrestling is just not there. I don't think his wrestling is good at all. I mean, he likes to get the upper body lock trip takedowns, and I will say you see, before he fought in the PFL, he fought in Icon Fighting. Cans. He's fighting cans. I'm telling you, these are horrible opponents. It's hard to really gauge how good Elvin Espinoza is because he's fighting taxi drivers, okay? And we see in this Hopton Stewart fight, I mean, he got a rear naked choke in the first round. Hopton Stewart fought Jay Ellis. So it's like, what level of competition are we operating at here, my man? And then the Corey Jackson fight. It was a unanimous decision. What a horrible fight. They literally pushed each other up against the cage for the whole fight. And Espinoza could not get any takedowns on Corey Jackson, who was like 32, 33 years old. He's an older guy. So he's like, it's not even like he's fighting good competition, and he can't even get takedowns on these guys. Like, I don't know. His BJJ is not bad. It's just the whole process of him getting it there. I don't know what gym does he fight out of. It doesn't say, but who cares? I just don't rate him that high. I mean, if he does get it to the ground, I mean, yeah, he could win. He has good jiu-jitsu, but it's like, on the feet, I mean, he's got good rear leg kicks. Like he's a southpaw striker, so he'll throw that left kick to the body. That's probably his best weapon on the feet. And he has a straight left. That's about it. I mean, good knees in the clinch from now and then, but it's like I said, he's not fighting high level competition here. So it's like, I don't know how good he is. And then we got Damir Ferhatbegovic. I mean, he's not fighting the best competition either in his wins. But you will see in his losses, he fought Jonathan Pierce and Luis Pena. I mean, he did get out grappled by both those guys pretty comfortably. Like, the Pierce fight, he was able to get some top time, but Pierce does what he does. He does that, he does that parking lot jujitsu, and he's just able to dog out transitions. And Luis Pena kind of just dominated him. I mean, both these guys are high level dudes. They're both in the UFC. Luis Pena is probably in prison right now, but at least he's working on his back takes in prison, I will say. And I mean, you look at his wins. I mean, I was able to see the BJ Bland fight and the Jordan Weeks fight. I mean, the Jordan Weeks fight was in 2019. Jordan Weeks, dude, was not that good, and he dragged him out to a decision. But he controlled that fight, won pretty clear, 30-27. And I will say he did look a lot more improved in his BJ Bland fight, which is good to see because that was about 3 years after the Weeks fight. And we saw him get a first-round knockout in that fight. And based on his last 2 fights, he beat Nate Williams and BJ Bland. Nate Williams is not a bad fighter at all, so that's a good win. But he took a long layoff for that to fight BJ Bland, and then another year layoff for this. So I'm curious to see what Damir is going to be looking coming into this fight. I mean, let me see how old he is. He's 28 years old, so it's like we're going to be seeing improvements here. But I will say against Jonathan Pierce and Luis Pena, like I said, it's about 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. His takedown defense did not look the best, but I mean, he's scrambling well. He's able to get up in reverse position against Pierce. But that's the path to victory for Elvin. I mean, you see it against those guys. He gets taken down. But I mean, it's 5.5 years ago. So to say, oh, Jonathan Pierce, Luis Pena took him down. Maybe Elvin Espinoza could take him down. I don't know. But I will say in the BJ Bland fight, his striking looked a lot more crisp. And he was able to time a beautiful uppercut on Bland to get the finish. Nice to see. So, I mean, you look at the odds on this fight. It's I believe it's minus 140 for Espinoza and plus 120 for Damir. So, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you give Espinoza the grappling upside, but it's like I don't rate his wrestling at all. So, I'm willing to take a dog shot on Damir. I mean, he trains with Scott Holtzman and company down in Tennessee, I believe. Or is it? No, he's down in NC. I don't know why Typology says Tennessee, but he's training with Scott Holtzman. And I'll take Damir just solely on the fact he's the underdog. I could expect him to get taken down here. Maybe look for an over because it's like Damir didn't really show too much finishing ability in the earlier tape I seen. Although he did finish BJ Bland, I don't think that BJ Bland dude was that talented. And he knocked him out in the first round. But Elvin Espinoza, he looks like he's tough, but his striking defense is not really there either. If he doesn't get the takedown, I worry for Elvin Espinoza on the feet because Damir, he's got good technical striking, good counter boxing, good leg kicks. He's just very smooth on the feet. It's just his takedown defense in the past did not look that great. So I'm curious to see if Espinoza gets him down. And that's probably going to be the story of the fight. And that's it I got on that one. I'm probably going to go Damir by unanimous decision. And then overall recap of the card. I mean, some interesting betting spots. I do know BetOnline releases props, so I'm curious to look at the props for this fight. One prop I'd probably look at is Sousa by KO. Considering Henrique's got the tall man defense, if we can get plus money on Sousa by KO, I'm willing to bet that. But money line wise on the Sousa fight, I'm not probably going to touch that. Damir as an underdog, I mean, I don't blame you for going 1 to 2 units on that. And Anthony Romero minus 300, probably going to be the easiest bet on the card. But I will say he's not a big finisher. If we get like an over 1.5, over 2.5 at decent odds, I mean, you probably got to take it. And then the Charlie Decca Aguayo fight, that's a dumpster fire. Might as well flip a coin, and that's probably going to tell you who's going to win. But I guess we'll I want to go with an over in the Decca fight. If it's 1.5, I'll go with an over in the Decca fight. But Charlie Decca's live to knee you in the face, so who the fuck knows? Probably spent too much time talking on this, but like my man Hog in the back says, you ain't got to win, but you got to fight. Amen. Peace out, everybody.